Hello, you join me playing one of my all-time favourite Sega Saturn games, the excellent Sega Rally Championship. You might well ask, why am I starting a video about the Pseudo Saturn Kai with Sega Rally? Well, there are two reasons. Firstly, that there really isn't a more appropriate game to start my Sega Saturn videos with, but mainly because I wanted to show you one of the most useful features of the Pseudo Saturn Kai for Satiator. The ability to reset from a game back to the games list by pressing A, B, C and Start together. First time you do this, a game should return to its title screen. Repeat this, and as we can see, it returns to the Pseudo Saturn Kai menu or games list. It can also return back to whatever game was previously selected, a feature I find useful. So let's get started with the Pseudo Saturn Kai menu for Satiator, which right away will feel familiar if you've been using the default menu. We can use A or C to enter folders or start a game, or B to return to the previous folder, just as before. Like with the original Satiator menu, I like how clean and simple the interface is. There's no fluff, and this keeps things quick and responsive, which are important qualities for me. Installation couldn't be simpler. Just drop one file into the root of your SD card. The next time you boot, the Pseudo Saturn Kai menu will appear instead. Note that no other modifications are required to the game data or images on your SD card. To remove it, just remove the same file and you will revert back to the default Satiator menu once more. This means you can try it out, but easily remove it later if you decide it's not for you. But here's where things get more interesting. The Pseudo Saturn Kai is essentially a soft mod, allowing you to use features that previously required a dedicated cartridge like an Action Replay or Pseudo Saturn Kai. Using the LR buttons, you can access some additional options, which I'll quickly go through. So the first menu is ODE menu settings. First option, reset to root, is currently off. When set to on, the Pseudo Saturn Kai will return to the root of your SD card when starting the system, instead of returning to the last game selected. The next option, Game Info. If I press L and go back and highlight a game, see the text starting in yellow? This option toggles whether the two additional lines of information are displayed or not. Other options control the ordering and display of your games list. Next menu is Display Settings. First option is Starfield FX. We can turn the stars on the background on or off. For color theme, this is the standard option. However, I personally prefer the black option. There are also options for the cursor and font here. This last option, which changes the background logo, I'll quickly show. If you go into the CD-ROM logo folder, there are two additional options that you can choose from here. I'm going to replace it with the Satiator logo so you can see what that looks like. It's just going to take a moment while that loads up. That's a neat feature, and I plan myself to experiment with using custom logos here. Pressing R once more brings us to the last menu, Extra Features. First option, Save Data Manager. This is basically an alternative Save Data Manager from the original Saturn one that runs within the Pseudo Saturn Kai itself. Start from CD drive. This option will allow you to boot from a disk using your optical drive. And reset menu cache may be useful after updating your SD card or games. You may find you need to use this function to reset the cache manually from time to time, depending on the circumstances. There is one last set of menus. If I press B to go to the root folder and B one more time from the root, here is the Pseudo Saturn Kai menu system. So there's an option for enabling cheats and start homebrew. Not completely familiar with those. It's not really important for what I'm showing here. Here, under Loader Settings, we have the BRAM, which is the internal Saturn backup RAM. By default, this is set to normal, but if your internal memory is empty, it's safe to just set this to per game mode. Doing so will enable per game saves to your Satiator's SD card. You can set the save slot to prompt, but if you just set 00 here, then everything is handled for you automatically. With these two settings, your save files will be automatically managed and backed up for you by the Pseudo Saturn Kai software. Display settings, this is basically just a duplicate of the one found in the LR menu, but it's here as well if you want it. System info and credits should be fairly self-explanatory. Exit is to exit the Pseudo Saturn Kai software completely. Exit to multiplayer would actually take us back to the Saturn UI, as if you were to start the console without a Satiator in it and no disk in the drive, that menu that you normally see with the Saturn. System reset just does a system reset of the console. We don't want to do either of those. But if I go to the top option, Start Game, that will actually start the Satiator menu Kai once more and bring us back to our games list. One last feature of the Pseudo Saturn Kai is the ability to use cheats without needing an action replay card. I'm going to do this with Dynamite Decker, or Die Hard Arcade in the West. After highlighting the game, press X to bring up the cheats menu. Using X, we can select or deselect single items, or using Y, we can toggle all selections on and off at once. I'm just going to be using the Always Run in 240p fix. After that, we can use either A, C, or Start to run the game. This cheat is very useful because Die Hard Arcade is one of those titles that does resolution switching on the fly. This was no problem for CRT displays, but causes issues with modern LCDs and upscalers. Using a cheat provides a simple solution to fix this problem. Without this cheat, each time the game switches between gameplay and FMV, your display will need to re-establish its connection. This can be very annoying, especially for games with fast-paced action, so it's a great option to have. Although my capture card isn't able to show it, on my display the screen remains black for a few seconds longer when switching modes without this cheat. Once more, let's use ABC Start to reset back to the games list. Next, I wanted to show you the widescreen cheat for the original Panzer Dragoon. Again, this isn't really a cheat, but it does make it easier to play the game on a modern widescreen display. Having the ability to use cheats without needing a special cartridge is a great bonus for the Pseudo Saturn Kai. I personally don't see me using actual cheats, but these options make it possible to alter games without having to manually patch them. Support will vary between games in your library, but I just wanted to show a few examples of what is possible using this feature. Once more, let's reset back to the games list using ABC Start. One last thing I wanted to show. We'll use Panzer Dragoon 2 since it's right here. If you try to reset back to the games list, some games like Panzer Dragoon 2 simply won't work. All titles using the JHL loader will have this problem. Thankfully, most games using the Pseudo Saturn Kai utilize the CWX loader, where this feature works just fine. So be aware of this. For affected titles, you can simply power cycle the console, as was previously required for all games. Overall, the Pseudo Saturn Kai for Satiator has become indispensable for me in a very short time. It allows me to reset back from most games without manually power cycling the console, whilst adding a bunch of really useful features that make using a Saturn even easier than ever. Hopefully this video has been useful. More Saturn and Dreamcast stuff will be coming in future.